Okay. Text Marjorie, you can text Matt, Nick, or whatever.
Yeah, there's no one in the meeting then. Oh, there they are. Let's yeah.
Marjorie's
So, try now, Dave.
Good evening.
Okay.
Another guest.
Marjorie,
Ray and Barbara.
Kosh.
Koski.
Hockey.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Did you want us to talk?
No, we're just listening in about 91 Sheffield, so looking forward to your discussion.
Are you Ray and Barbara?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Welcome. Sorry, we've had some technical difficulties. We just got everybody online. We haven't started the meeting yet, but we're waiting for one commissioner to sign in and then we'll start momentarily.
We got Dave now.
Hey, David.
Okay.
David, are you there?
Yes.
David, you
Yes,
there
I'm
now?
here. Yes.
I apologize to everybody for the, well, let's start the meeting first.
Yeah.
It's 7:22. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. We have all 5 commissioners here. 4 of us are, physically at the town hall and David is remote. David Cole is remote. So we have a quorum and we're going to move forward. This is a special meeting for 2 items. First one is dealing with 91 Sheffield Street and a potential change to from marine industrial. The second one is going to be review and approval of a RFP for Ferry Road Dock. Okay. Ray and Barbara, you're not obligated. You're just listening. I take it
Correct.
from your previous comments. I'll just say again, welcome. And I think we can start. How do you guys want to proceed here? What's new since the last meeting was that Ms. Shansky provided an updated letter dated February 23rd, 2026. I assume all the commissioners have had a chance to review that letter. And I'm looking to see if anybody would like to start with comments. I can give some preliminary stuff early, but I prefer even somebody else start to be for me.
So we scheduled the special meeting to get some additional information from applicant, and they sent this over. I think we were expecting something different. They'd mentioned a point-by-point justification. They had listed nearly, well, almost half of the harbor management plan as being consistent. The last letter this time came back with basically the same thing. This time 1/3 of the harbor management goals and objectives are listed as being consistent, but there's no rationale around any of them. There's a footnote at the very bottom of page 5 referencing the proposed development includes a pier with 4 slips. These boats support boatyard and launching facilities. Though specific goal is mentioned, no comment regarding this being true of anyone, whether they live in Saybrook or not, that anybody would go to a marine facility if they owned a boat. So basically no additional information than we had last time. My comment.
Would anybody else like to make an opening remark or comment? David, just because you're not here, you're not excluded.
Thanks. No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Also mention, I believe the previous proposal or plan had more public access as far as,
2 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
you know, parking for the public to use the kayak launching facility and those type of things, for trying to propose more access to the public. I mean, those kind of things are important. Try to,
I think we covered a little bit of that last time, and you weren't sure why. Yeah, it was, the original proposal was involved relocation of a major wetland, which allowed us to sort of spread the structures out. And we thought at the time that, there was actually some mention, as I said last time, this has been going on for years, that there was some suggestion about the kayak, maybe having a kayak launch there. When we developed the kayak launch, the DEP felt that, while they didn't reject it, they felt that the ways that the boats would have to come in and out of the cove there wasn't ideal for the kayaking. And then obviously we lost the wetland, the ability to relocate the wetland went away. So then we took everything and we had to shrink it all down. So there wasn't really a lot of room for additional, we actually got rid of one home and went to 4 from 5. And obviously, in terms of public access, public parking, we really didn't have room for that and meeting all the rest of the setbacks. We discussed this last time. I mean, the property is really sort of confined almost to a funnel because it has tidal wetlands, gateway, inland wetlands, all that have circumferences of them, you really don't want to get to. We provided that, and Mr. Nielsen spoke last time quite in depth that, we provided a walkway that kind of was supported by inland wetlands because, we have to keep a certain distance from their wetlands condition. And we brought it to a point where they felt the view vista was the greatest over they could see the bridge, they could see tidal wet marsh, and you can see the cove, the North Cove, which really is only completely visible in the southeast corner. We did mention that.
Yeah.
Some of that's again.
Maybe I was under a bit of, and I'll let Mark speak, maybe I was under some confusion. So what I thought had happened was Marjorie's previous letter hadn't got to the chair. And so we sort of we decided that we would re-highlight exactly what parts of your harbor commission code that we feel that this contains. Obviously, the one of the largest, and we had some conversation last time about this. So, the word we were talking about is balance, right? So one of the predominant situations or requirements in a marine industrial application is water dependent use, which this property, by all conceivable nature, by what engineers have indicated, that really that could not happen. One is because of the depth of water, siltation, some other ecological scenarios that have existed over there. It wouldn't be available, is what my understanding in simple format. And I'm not pretending to be an engineer or know those things. Additionally, it was stipulated that the project, while this goal, one of the missions of this commission was to try to maintain marine industrial land wherever possible. Our task was to show you guys that the history of this property you know, at one point was used sort of in a small business format, sale and sale manufacturing, and actually residents, people actually lived on the property. It was a working, going back 50 years ago. And then for approximately 20 some odd years, it's been fallow. There's been several attempts to put the property under contract, but none of which were on any kind of commercial or industrial application. Everything was, to my understanding, on a residential format, which did not get approved for a variety of reasons. But you know, I think was also highlighted by Mr. Nielsen and our team. You know, and it's on this map where this property is located. It's surrounded, obviously, by residential everywhere around it, with the exception of the cemetery, of course. Which, you know, I don't know.
The residents, but yeah.
They're quiet residents, right? So, and then we also kind of discussed the actual Sheffield Street itself, and you know, in terms of industrial usage of heavy trucks, turnaround capabilities, et cetera, that it really wouldn't be ideal. And so the points that we had left this meeting with were the property's never been used, to our knowledge or anyone's knowledge, ever in a water dependent marine industrial use. In what Mr. Nielsen said in particular in the last meeting was that since even, I think he said 1980s, the regulations have changed with the adoption of the Inland Water Act. And I should let Marjorie speak to this, but that obviously.
Yeah, that would be an idea.
Okay, go ahead, Margaret.
Mr. Chairman, can I be a participant in this meeting and not just a disembodied voice?
Sure, show up.
Yeah, I just want to make a point. There was a hydrographic survey company in there for several years, right?
Marine, non-water dependent marine use for many, many years.
Because they trailered their.
Yeah, the point being they didn't access the water.
Yeah.
From the, right.
But marine industrial use
Yeah.
for many years.
It was Sailmaker and then went to OSI, right?
Yep.
Oh, so, yeah.
And I believe you work for OSI, right?
Yeah, for a brief period of time.
Yeah, but so we had discussed that it was not, they had never used it in a water dependent use. Just it almost was coincidental. But, go ahead, Marjorie.
Well, first I'd like to say that I have shown up. I'm here virtually because I finished teaching at Quinnipiac Law School at 6 o'clock and wanted to be punctual. So that's why I'm here. But I, in the interim, have evaluated and researched what plan consistency means, not just plan consistency with the harbor management plan, but plan consistency wherever it's sought in land use applications. And to the extent that the commissioner thinks that this is not a different letter and not a different set of factual bases on which to find consistency, that's not true. You have also a 5-page letter from Keith Nielsen and his comprehensive testimony at the last meeting, as well as our description of what is on this site and what is intended for this site. Section 2, the policies about environmental quality, are all about the balance of the cumulative impacts and the ability of the land to sustain development, and the extent to which this developer will rehabilitate the tidal wetlands, do invasive species control, and a robust landscaping plan are all consistent with the protection and enhancement of the tidal wetlands, which is a value in your own management plan and in the Coastal Management Act. And in the time of rising seas, the idea of migration of water onto the landscape means that that is of paramount importance, not just to this parcel, but to the town of Old Saybrook in general for flood control and the other functions and values that the tidal wetlands provide. So no, that is not all spelled out under 2.1, 2.2, but it is part of the record in these proceedings. And so you have to consider it all together. Similarly, the idea of the unprecedented in our ability to have researched it and found it. Any other water dependent use that had actually occurred on this site. And you know, as well as we know, that public access is a proxy under DEEP's rubrics for public access, and that is being provided. And Mr. Picard has explained why in the now almost 10 years that we've been working on this parcel, our inability to persuade the Inland Wetlands Commission on our initial proposal that had a larger public access component, as Mr. Picard explained, resulted in the sort of sucking in or reduction of the development footprint. And that is a concomitant change that occurred as a result. So, the idea is that in the last iteration, when the section 36 of the regulations was all that was before this commission, the commission did find that there was consistency with certain elements of the harbor management plan. And as I state every time we speak, I think that finding is accurate but short shrifted in terms of the breadth of consistency. And in my research, that is sufficient to find that, yes, this is consistent with policies and goals of the harbor management plan. We understand that you regret the change from MI to PDD. We understand that. But the market has spoken, the site characteristics have spoken, which Mr. Nielsen discussed with you in detail. And this is a wonderful balancing of environmental protection, benefits to the waters of Old Saybrook in the state of Connecticut, and even sort of reconciliation of those considerations with a private property owner's right to develop his property with a public access component, which is no small matter.
If I may, for a moment, I think one of the, the record, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to pretend that, but one of the things that your chairman and I kind of discussed briefly the last time was, so what are you guys giving up? And the pragmatic side of this is that with the Gateway Commission that basically has a conservation easement around, within 100 feet of the highest tidal wetlands, and the funneling of this property and with setbacks off each line, what's really left was and most of what is in this property, the large amount of it to the tidal wetland. You have a very small portion, just about 3 acres, and it's very irregularly orchestrated. So from a pragmatic standpoint, to be able to use this property in any kind of commercial, industrial, and then even further tailored to the uses in marine industrial, say the ones that are not water dependent that I've gone through with Chris Costa, it's extremely limiting. And then the pragmatic of trying to use this thing with turnarounds and parking and the roadway for Sheffield with the Crown. I mean, there's a lot of things that have been discussed in the 10 plus years of planning. And then the surrounding neighbors that, when we first came to you, them basically offered me a lawsuit within minutes. We're putting a round peg in a square hole is the problem, because we always had a round peg and we just assumed that it was a round hole, but it really isn't. And so we have tried to, and then when we discussed Chairman and I, where is the balancing line? Where's the baseline of balancing line? And I don't know that I left before, previously understanding where that was, obviously your mission is to try to protect property that is owned. For you guys, it's precious and far. We get it. So if it was once a marina, if it was once I say, and I'm not trying to say this tongue in cheek,
even those underground water guys that were before, that they were happened to be in the marine business, but they didn't even use the property. I wonder if that wasn't a level of convenience. They didn't even really use the property, in that fashion, in a marine dependent use, even though they have these buggies that could go in. The biggest problem also would be today is that even in their operation, there was 4 buildings, one has fallen. The 3 buildings that still remain, in order to be able to get those even usable again, would require us to bring them to codes that, that it's also becomes a practical infeasibility, right? And we still have to get past you guys and deal with the other 100 people, the Shellfish Commission, the ARB, it's almost impossible to get zoning and land use that we have in this town that all overlaps, to have this work in a practical basis as a marine industrial use today. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying if we're putting a percentage on it, it seems it's very limiting. It's very, very limiting. And we were hoping that fact is going to really lean towards the balancing act, right? I mean, I think I understand that, one of the things we don't want is precedent, right? So we don't want to say, oh, we supported Picard's change in the zone. Now we got to support, taking this, this marina and turning it into residential. I understand your concerns. I truly do. But I think we have to look at every piece and part in its, its an entirety as separate issues. And this piece is not something that can become a marina or an oyster, harvesting place, or I don't believe that it would, with the rest of the zoning and everything else that goes with it, location, et cetera, that it would work as a prosperous marine industrial use. If it was, I'm pretty certain it wouldn't be set fallow for as long as it did. Let's hopefully, but we can add to that. And I don't know that this group disagrees with that. In fact, I think, and you had some very productive conversations last time. I think I think you guys struggle with, is it within our purview to be able to do something we believe the zoning commission would do? I would only add to this that, I hear all the time as I sit in board after board, well, that's not in their purview, or this is in their purview and they're not. I have found, right or wrong, that most commissions challenge or review every application. Not only might it's not just in their purview, but go beyond that. All right. I think they like to get a bigger scope. I think some make decisions that maybe shouldn't have been made in their purview, but the reality is that you guys, I think you have purview here to support this. And it's not, I wouldn't just rest on the zoning commission to say, oh, well, it's really their job to do that. I mean, I think you guys recognize that what we are adding is public access that doesn't exist. We are talking about some stuff that I would assume is consistent with, is environmentally restoring all the phragmites, which I would have, to mitigating them, in those areas. That's a benefit. The use of recreational boating or some marine usage, I think that is certainly a benefit. Obviously, a planting and a replanting plan that's going to foster at least I'm told, the ecological environment out there. I think that would be something that's consistent. So there's, some things, while these regulations are brief, I think that we are working diligently. Are we supporting all your agenda? No, I don't know that it's possible. But I think that in light of other uses that are there, I think we're tilting that balance, if you would.
Thank you for that, Mike.
Thank you.
Just going to suggest a kind of a framework here going forward, because what we have is, I didn't count them, 20 or so places where Ms. Shansky says this meets the harbor. Okay. Just gonna say this as a basis. I don't think counting numbers is gonna be like you got 15 and I got 5, okay? I don't think that's the way to look at this, right? I think there's some that are more, pertinent to our mission. And I hear you, Mike, about, I'm not picking on the words at all, giving it to zoning, but like our function is the water, essentially, and things that marginally touch the water, So when you start talking about zoning and stuff like that, we are not the people. We don't have the expertise when it comes to parking turnaround, crowns on roads. That's not us.
Understood.
Okay.
But so fortunately though, because they all intertwine to some extent.
They
Because
do.
it's use, it's use, right?
Correct.
Right.
They all intertwine. They all, we're gonna say something, Rob.
No, go.
Oh, okay.
Go.
All right. No, I heard just move. So,
I thought, and then.
but here's what I kind of thought makes sense from our standpoint. Okay, is that in its simplest terms, you folks want to take a marine industrial parcel and build 4 houses on it, right? And that's it. Because I don't want to get into the, it makes my head hurt. PPD and the zoning and okay. So that's what the ask is. To me, that's the big question that we can answer to zone, right? Whether we think that act meets the harbor management plan or doesn't. Okay. I'm not afraid of the word judgment. You asked me, and I admitted that in the last meeting. We have to decide, kind of what we think is more important than other things. Okay. So I think it boils down to 2 points. All right. Will a zoning change, generically calling it, decrease the ability of the parcel to be used for water dependent marine activities? Okay. That's a question I think we need to answer. And the second one,
Just to say
Sure.
again, would the zone change?
Will the zoning change decrease the
potential
the ability
of
of the parcel to be used for water dependent marine activities? That's what I would.
I think the answer to that would be yes, I guess, but then would there be a precursor to that, which we discussed before? If it's engineeringly infeasible, do we have that?
I'll get to some of the precursors. I just want to frame this because, I read every one of the ones that Marjorie put down, and after a while, my teeth. Okay, because I couldn't put it in a box of what's important and what's not important. So I just went through this in my mind. You guys might have a different idea. The second one is, will the zoning change of the parcel provide public access that is of a magnitude that it will outweigh the potential loss of water dependent marine? Right? I mean, I think those are the 2 things. That formed the structure of our letter last time. And maybe that's the way we kind of go through it, and talk about this stuff a little bit and see where we're all sitting. I encourage you to jump in with, whatever you've written at any point you think is correct. Okay.
No, I think that's a good framework.
Okay.
And because we have to live within our purview. And I understand completely that there needs to be a big picture, but that's not us. We're looking at one aspect, and we're advising the zoning commission on that one aspect. And that's our role.
So
I was just gonna add, and I think we can advise them, we can also qualify.
Yeah.
How,
I think it's fair to qualify.
exactly.
Yeah.
I really do think it's fair. Look,
Yeah.
we've said this is a difficult site.
Anyone who chooses to purchase this site is gonna face the same challenges.
Right, and putting marine industrial in that site has limitations. You know, I think we all agree to that, and that's something that whatever way we come down, I think we should identify that that was an opinion shared by all of us, and the zoning commission should be informed of that.
Yeah,
In fairness.
on the other hand, you know, while it doesn't have great marine dependent potential, you know, somewhat ironically, we are being asked to approve a dock in the marine non-dependent area. So, I mean, there's that too. So you have to sit back and go, okay, well,
There's always a
which is it?
I was always a little troubled by that.
Yeah.
But let's get to, I'm gonna make some general comments, and this is where you guys can jump in, okay? About Keith's site suitability analysis. I saw what Keith did, I've read it several times. I pretty much understand where he's coming from on most of it. A lot of it seems to be based on dredging, right? Many parts of it are based on dredging, but you know, I don't know if that's, you know, going to be required or not required. I know it's shallow, don't get me wrong, you know,
2 feet.
but you know, you got to balance that against take into consideration once the parcel is gone, it's gone forever. And I think all of us are struggling with what the future may bring. I fully appreciate that you say, and we admit, you know, that, well, we admit, I accept that this has not had a marine industrial use in over 10 years and may never have had a water dependent. So I think that's that. Another thing that I'm just going to say something and you guys can jump up and down and say, stop saying it. I think that's another thing that we identify to, in fairness to the zoning commission. Yeah. Right? But I keep on thinking, you know, like I said before, we know Keith, we like Keith, you know, we worked with Keith before, I respect his opinion, but it's one person's opinion. Okay, and I don't know if there's some, you know, other engineer out there with a different spin on this, or some other developer with a different spin. No disrespect to you for sure. You know, so I don't know how much we can. Well, I'm going to pull everything. How much we can say what will or will not happen, and what will or will not be possible in the future. Maybe I'm not, this one, maybe we are pushing off a little bit the zoning commission. Maybe that will resonate with them. Maybe it will. I don't know. I went through this. Well, you want to say anything? Does anybody want to say anything before I just start throwing in the hot here? I really feel like I do that.
No, I mean, you know, to potential uses, you know, one of our objectives. There we go. No, I went to say it. Oh, here we go. Goal 10. Public support, education, and participation. Encourage educational and scientific use of the harbor management area. You know, it sits across the street from the school.
The one challenge I have, like, I don't like speculating about.
I don't either.
Like I think I love to keep us in our lane, right? And our lane is really, we have a development proposed development in front of us. We have this, like, we're considering that. We can't kind of start to pull in, you know, historically, how did it end up marine industrial? Yeah, that weighs into it, but you know, we're really looking at it now, and we can't speculate in the future. Because I think there could be you could dream up all sorts of stuff, but the reality, it's not kind of part of this decision, other than the fact that, yeah, there are potential,
right,
you know, ideas out there.
Well, just as a counterpoint to some of the things Keith was saying.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think that's it's the big picture. Like, I think it's tough to,
But Keith, wasn't Keith, what his, I didn't think he said that would have no use in the marine, for a marine aspect. What he said is a traditional marine industrial water dependent use would be nearly impossible.
Yeah, you're not gonna put a marina there.
But
Exactly.
Very
It's-
unlikely.
But
it's
it was
very-
it was on an economic basis.
Yes, and
Yeah,
that's
it's a paper
correct. There's
trail.
also an economic element, and which I guess is, again, I'm not part of the law practice, but I guess that's also part of, the development, in zoning and what have you. But yes, I think I don't think that he was saying, to your point, all of a sudden, if you had a marine, a school there, I mean, would that fit in? Maybe, but I think what he was saying, clearly the word economics was used, but in the theoretical, traditional water dependent use, i.e. like a marina, it's nearly completely unlikely that would happen, over there. And we all said it, and it never did, and there's probably.
Yeah, I think we all agree that it's a unique piece of property to be a marine industrial use zone property,
Water dependent.
water dependent,
Absolutely.
which makes it a challenging piece of property.
Yeah.
Like, that's
No
clear.
doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, and Bob, your point that does the public access increase of public access outweigh the change of the zoning? And the fact that, previously there was plans for having public parking, public dock access for launching kayaks. And you explained because of the tightness of the lot, but is it impossible to not have public parking spaces and, signage and,
Oh, yeah.
public access signage?
Signage.
We have signage, we have a walkway, you have benches, you have that. That is part of this program.
Yeah. So,
You don't have designated public parking on the site right now. I mean, certainly, you would definitely be getting, and I think Keith even said, we would even be open to suggestions in the public viewing if you guys had some additional comments with that, if that's something that you feels material. I will let you know, sort of an off record, I had certain people, come to me and say, would it ever be feasible to bring a walkway in from the estuary area? There's something called the town estuary, and there's some folks, and I immediately put Mike on and had conversations with Keith. Well, not Keith himself, but Keith's office regarding that. And because again, we want to outweigh, we're trying to create a balance, right? To your point, was the point. We want to build some houses there because I first came to these guys actually with a marine use, but it didn't go. So, and then obviously to merge the people together, we'd like to have public access. So what was discovered is that the area which, and again, it's not impossible, but what I reported back to the first selectman and some others is that to be able to get from that area at this point in time looks to be tidal wetlands. All right, there's a depression, and so one of the things I was told is that at a minimum there would have to be more studies done to confirm this, but it was of the belief of DACO and Mr. Ott that the way the topography was there and what they saw in the surroundings recently, that it's likely that area, almost 100%, is tidal wetlands. And to be able to get access from the elderly housing or the estuary would require some sort of boardwalk, if you would.
Elevated walkway.
Yeah.
Elevated walkway, exactly, that's what I was stipulating, which would take a lot of time and dollars. I didn't say opposed to that. In fact, I would be in favor as long as it wasn't on my dime, because there would be a fair amount of, no disrespect for my team here, but we spent many thousands of dollars already, on this process, and I don't know how much benefit was, but we looked at it, to your point, and if we wanted to make the viewing area larger, we could do that. If you felt that outweighs it, we're open for those conversations within, stuff within our capacity to if it's a matter of getting your support based on the outweighing, we can do that. And I think, ultimately, I think redundant, but if there really wasn't a true marine reliant, a water dependent use to begin with, what is the trade-off other than it has its stamp on it, right? And we all said, hey, pie in the sky, can we get drones that comes in? I don't know, to your point, we don't, your job is to speculate on what could be. It's just what's in front of you, but we're hoping that a level of support. So obviously the public access, which is your second statement, what is your view from that? I mean, we talked about trying to have, and I would continue to say that I would be supportive to work with the town if they were to want to create a pedestrian node from the estuary area, which is what I was told was called, onto our property and to the viewing area. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't want to make your decision or anyone's conditional upon that at this point in time, but that is certainly something that we would accept.
Why don't we come back to that? But that's helpful. Thank you very much. That's and I hate to keep on just plodding through my thought process here, but I don't see anybody jumping up saying they want to talk. So
I'll happily interrupt if I have something to say.
I'm begging, okay, because I don't really feel like, I don't want to lead this, I'd like to, I'm just setting up a framework. But with what I said as a framework, I went through Marjorie's letter and, I think this is going to get a rise, maybe justifiable out of Marjorie here, right? I looked at section 2.1 and I read them. All right, I'm just trying to group big picture, right? You said section 2.1 policies, you said, and believe it or not, this is kind of getting to the balance. Right? Because if we're off on the fact that there are benefits there we're not recognizing, we've recognized one, we've recognized a negative one, I just read through those policies and said, look, if anybody puts in marine industrial here, they kind of got to live to the same standards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Environmental, it's not really that it's great, it meets it. The proposed development, the environmental aspects of it. But when I read through them all, I kind of went, everybody has to do that, right? I mean, whether it's marine industrial or residential. 4 homes, I keep on calling it 4 homes, so I don't, somebody doesn't start doing PPD or whatever. So I really didn't see those as being materially affecting our decision.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to hear about the Phragmite mitigation, because that kind of went in one ear and out the other day. Is that something that, could you expand on that a little bit more, Marjorie, about why we should consider that as a benefit? I mean, it almost sounds obvious the way I'm talking about it, but.
Well, maybe, and just to add to that, is the wetland, because I'm looking at it as like wetland enhancement or wetland mitigation, right? You're eradicating invasive species. Tidal wetland, sorry, yeah. As part of expanding, because I just jotted that down as well. I felt the things that I didn't pick up on last time, and I don't know why, but I do see that as a benefit to add, right? But to your earlier point, not developing within the wetland is just, I agree. That's a requirement that anyone that took the site for any purpose would have to live with, right? Like, you're kind of
remembering a couple water mitigation, fixing bulkheads, like a lot of that doesn't apply.
And I guess
I may not be quoting them 100%.
Yeah. And I guess I was curious for that tidal wetland mitigation, let's call it tidal wetland mitigation for this purpose. Is that something that's being required, or is that just something that you all have put in there to enhance the property,
We were asked, I'm dating myself, and I'll let Marjorie
I am not an environmentalist, but what I do know is that, and also because of another piece I own in town, I was approached by, the town to see if, in one area, I actually gave 17 acres of tidal wetlands
Mhm.
to the land trust, and they got grants from the state and I guess the federal government to eradicate. So what my understanding is the Phragmites erode and destroy the tidal wetlands. They don't allow certain species.
Yeah, they outcompete
All right.
everything.
So, there was a grant given and the, company, and I have a proposal for this. And quite a bit of these areas throughout the town are currently being, serviced by, all habitats.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're going in and over a period of years. We did get a proposal. The answer is it's voluntary, right? It was a six-figure cost to me. Obviously they didn't have any money left, from their grant, and would I consider, everything, actually a lot of marked because of where our line is it's actually, in the swamps. And so it's actually my property. It's not even adjoining property, but yes, I agree that we would, pay all habitats to eradicate this over a 3-year period per the permits and what they have. I made it conditional that it provided that the property gets approved. Okay? I mean, once they heard that I was willing to do it, they was thinking, can I get my check the next day? So yes, it's voluntary. My understanding again is it's quite impactful to that tidal marsh area for a variety of reasons. I might have way back even mentioned it. He was the one who encouraged. I mean, you probably know Keith is environmentalist by nature, right? Even though he works for people like me, developers. I think his passion is in the environment and trying to create the balance. So he encouraged us to do this. We looked into it, and we are under the impression that we can. I know that we can piggyback on the permit that's already in place with the DEP, and yes, we would pay to have that mitigated. So yes, it's a big deal from a cost standpoint, and I understand environmental.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all habitats. And I think Keith may have spoke to this, but when I heard it, at least I was thinking more uplands, and this was coming from the Gateway Commission or something. But there's removal or the cutting, treatment of the Phragmites, but then is there also plantings associated with it, or is it?
The plantings are in the
Upland. Okay, then I did hear that. Okay.
Yeah, so what we hired A2 Landscape and a bunch of Bartlett and some other folks, biologists, botanists.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the goals outside of this was that we would, whatever, because the buildings are coming down and certain trees were dead, we did an inventory replanting plan, a environmental replanting of ground cover that would be consistent with that area, certain salt grasses, things like that. So yes, that's all part of the overall, which is to your point, maybe it is pertinent to this recommendation or not, but certainly it's pertinent to zoning and gateway.
Yeah, and I was just trying to understand more, like, big picture, what is actually going into that wetland mitigation? Is it just the removal of the Phragmites, or?
So the upland is a removal of invasives.
Yeah.
And obviously the buildings, and it's a replanting of natural.
Yep.
And then obviously the all habitat is separate from that, and that's actually in the waterward area.
Yep.
You guys have any more questions?
I'll let you keep talking, then I'll interrupt.
I want you to interrupt.
Bob doesn't want to talk tonight.
Too bad.
I don't want to dominate.
He wrote down the notes. He's got to do it.
Couldn't keep this straight in my mind. I just didn't. The next section that Marjorie talked about was section 5.0. Okay. Of policies. policies and goals are different, right? In my view, section 5.1 I'm just gonna say what I think is relevant, okay? I read through all of them. Stabilization of waterfront properties, I don't think there's anything out there that has to be stabilized. Preserving the beneficial quality of life in the shoreline, I don't see that.
Well, no, but wouldn't you think that what we just mentioned would be part of that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Say that one again, sorry.
Well,
Five-
I would
five
thought
point-
the Phragmites,
5.4, stabilization of waterfront plan.
I would have thought that 5.4 and 5.5 would fall into that.
Shoreline
remediation.
protection, carefully planned and constructed to protect waterfront areas, and facilities from erosion.
So, yeah, it's interesting because this is just where my mind was going. Like, the eradication of Phragmites is great, right? Like, that is a highly invasive species in tidal wetlands. The challenge with it is you need something to take over that space, or else the Phragmites just come back, right? And that's why I was asking those questions about plantings. Like, if there was, for two purposes, if the plantings were planned, to kind of re-establish that area as native plants rather than Phragmites. And it's a battle, don't get me wrong. Like,
And
it's,
we have that too.
yeah, it sounded like you had the
But
other one.
not, I was not aware
Yeah,
that there was even an offering of a replant. Someone else may be able to add this. It's been going on for so long. But I was under the understanding that the eradication of the Phragmites was a 3-year
yeah,
process.
Yep.
That's what I know.
Yep.
And I was under the understanding that they would be eliminated, but you're saying that, well, but I think the hope was environmentally other things would foster, but maybe they would take it anyways. I don't know. I do know that upland, I became knowledgeable with all this stuff, that these invasives that exist, and I didn't even know this is an invasive, that's not invasive. We have some folks that work on this, and I understand that's a constant battle.
Yeah,
Right?
oh, yeah.
So planting, quality, stuff that would be non-invasive. Getting rid of the invasives is one end. Then planting natural species that would enhance that environment. And I believe that our landscape architect, Abigail Adams, from A2, was very sensitive and worked with all kinds of these shoreline people to get certain grasses and things like that are very, not just tolerant, but are productive.
Yeah,
okay, to try to eradicate some of the invasives. But I don't know that you're ever getting rid of them completely, right? I don't know
Yeah, it's a battle. And I think where I was going with my point was that how it ties into this. Now, this is a policy, right? Yeah, how it ties into this policy is the eradication of the Phragmites is fantastic, 100%. It does leave it open to either being taken back over by the Phragmites or by native species, right? Hopefully the native species. It also leaves it kind of vulnerable in that interim when nothing has that shoreline fully stabilized. So like the Phragmites, as much as they're an invasive species, they're also stabilizing the shoreline, right? So to get, if there was planting included, and maybe it is part of what All Habitats is offering, if they were going to do plantings, that really speaks to that policy, right? Because it is not just stabilizing the waterfront, it's also stabilizing it with native plants, which is different than what is currently there.
Say something.
Please.
But we're talking about 5.4, right?
Yeah. Uh-oh.
It's got
I keep reading.
to it. Yeah. Read the whole thing.
All right.
Yeah. First one talks about bulkhead and shoreline structures. Next one talks about repair of existing bulkheads. And
So it's looking at hard structure rather than
it
living
appears,
structure, living. Yeah.
then it goes into you can't fill the wetlands. Okay, and then Connecticut general statutes, blah, blah, blah.
I still stand by my point as a positive for this site,
Yeah.
but maybe it doesn't apply to that 5 point.
If we can't point to something in
Yeah.
here, but we do think it's some sort of positive that is buried in here, we can say that too.
And would
I think
I,
that's where the
can I
nuts-
ask this question? Marjorie too, if maybe, if something is not contradictory to these sections, could be recognized as supportive of these areas? Because like, for instance, I'm gonna throw this out there. We have no bulkheads, we not none of these things, but we're not building one, right? So is that in essence, is that considered a passive support? No.
And I'm gonna say no, because for this reason. We're looking at the zoning change, right, to figure out, you know, if, that's my point where I don't think that has any bearing on, I say this, that doesn't influence our decision whether or not never start off this because I'm tired already. But if we go back to the tenants, right? Will the zoning change decrease the ability of the parcel to be used for water dependent marine activities?
Yeah.
And will the zoning change of the parcel provide public access that is of a magnitude it's going to outweigh the potential loss of water dependent marine activities? That's neutral on. That's my point. You know, it just,
Yeah.
you know, the fact that you're not going to do something that's bad doesn't necessarily make it good. I mean, that would have to happen with whether we put marine industrial in there or you put four homes. So to me, it doesn't impact the decision.
And I think neutral is a good place to be, right? Like, and that's why I asked that question last time about bulkheads or anything, because
Right.
hard structure behind a tidal wetland almost always ends badly for the tidal wetland. And that's why it was good to hear that you all were not doing that. It's more just a sloping shoreline going up.
I think, I mean, what we write is, I think we also note a positive impact, although we might not be able to put it into the four corners here. You
Yeah.
know, of fragmity mitigation, right? I mean, that is a positive. You know,
Absolutely,
it
yeah.
goes forward, and I think it should be noted.
Yep.
Either way.
Everything, I would encourage everything positive and anything that you guys feel is significant. It would be a benefit for the zoning board to know that.
So when I look through 5, right, I'm just gonna say this, and say you missed one, okay? Marguerite, 5-1-5-4, 5-5-5-6, right? I looked at, I'm gonna take a reverse over here. 5-4, stabilization of work properties, we're just talking. Preserving the beneficial life, that's a neutral, in my opinion, that's like a requirement, and provision of public access. But under 5-1 has a number of sub-paragraphs. And I think there's stuff in 5-1 that is relevant. So I'm gonna say we can go back to 5-1 and read the sub-paragraphs. You know,
Let's flip it the other way.
pardon?
No, I've just thoroughly messed this thing up.
But you gotta just, it's done this way instead of, that's the, yeah, you got it.
And similarly, not to rush through this, but when I look through 6, I think there's stuff in 6-3 that's relevant. Marjorie's got 6-1, recognized waterfront use development of significance. You know, looking at 6-1, that's kind of neutral, right? 6-2, we gotta apply policies in the town. Yeah, we, you know. But I don't think that bears on our decisions. The only one out of the ones that I came out here is 6-3, which is giving high priority and preference to the development of water dependent uses on land adjoining the harbor management area. Right? That's something we should consider. Marjorie, if you think I'm missing any, this is your time to chime in. That have a bearing on the decision, you know? It's easier when we move along here, right? This goal 7, I think 7.
Marjorie's
She
okay.
Marjorie?
gotta move or something to make her camera pick up.
She's muted. She's muted. I don't know if by us or by her.
By her, not by me.
By her, okay.
What happened?
She's muted
I
herself.
can ask her to unmute. if you-
So I'm just gonna keep on going on, you know, and you come back.
Marjorie. Marge?
Yes,
The chairman had asked if, if you could weigh in on, in this area where he was going through the line items.
Under 6, we're on 6 now. You know, and I'm just gonna say that I look at 6.1, I look at all of them except 6.3, and none of these, in my view, has a bearing on, you know, whether we're gonna lose something if we let the houses being built and we lose the marine industrial aspect of this property. Or whether there's some sort of public access component in any of these things that we should be reading and focusing on. For example, you know, ensure that all work and structures waterward of the high tide line are properly authorized. Okay, that's kind of a given, you know?
Marjorie?
yes,
But if I understand, you've included these items in saying that they are consistent with the regulations.
correct, consistent with the harbor management plan. Consistent doesn't mean a benefit to or a detriment to. It means consistent with either the goal, the policy, or the strategy that's set forth in the harbor management plan. And I think that to the extent that you deem your characterization of elements being neutral as being more positive than not, or positive, you know, that's your discretion.
Okay.
Your comparison of what might happen in a different scenario and in the extent to which it would be subject to the same sorts of assertions or findings is not necessarily accurate. For example, and you've already indicated as a commission that, let me see, I took a note here, that zoning, we don't have the expertise. So the idea that any development would be out of the tidal wetlands is not true because those, both the demolished or the demolition by neglect building, and the other 3 buildings that still stand all have rights of continued existence as a matter of law. Though there could be reconstruction in situ for those buildings. So by contrast, we are in this proposal honoring all of the setbacks. So it is not accurate to say anybody would be doing the same thing. There are alternatives that are not as conservation sensitive and as environmentally protective.
What alternatives are we talking about? Just leaving it alone? Is that what you mean?
I think what she's indicating is that, from what I understand legally, again, this is zoning situations. We could make an application to rehabilitate those buildings as is. There's certain rights that we'd have to bring them to certain FEMA codes and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, we could keep them in its exact place, which in theory would be a detriment to the tidal wetlands and the surrounding areas if we did that.
So
Well,
and the proposed development is consistent with the harbor management plan because of the extent to which it is sensitive and respectful of both the tidal wetlands and their preservation and the all of the setbacks, including gateways.
But, okay. I still come back to what I'm thinking is, that doesn't help us make a decision one way or another of, you know, the balance between approving this and losing marine industrial.
Right.
Okay,
Well,
I don't feel it does. You know, maybe somebody else will, you know.
I have to say that in the two questions posited, would a zone change decrease the ability of the parcel for water dependent use? No, the zone change doesn't do that at all. The market does that, the attributes of the North Cove, the shallowness of the water there, the limitations associated from, as Keith described, and so it's not the zone change that diminishes the water dependency, it's the unfeasibility of a variety of water dependencies that are just not going to materialize, whether it's called marine industrial or planned development.
Then we're talking about, again, looking into the future, right? You know,
Yeah.
and we're not comfortable doing that.
Well, but we can look at the past and see that there have been no takers.
Well, we don't know how that property was marketed or promoted, nor is it part of our judgment. But just because it was fallow doesn't mean it wasn't attractive necessarily. Yes, someone didn't seek it out. We hear you. But I don't know any way, you know, I don't know if this was promoted in that fashion or not. I have no way of knowing that.
Maybe if I can just add, going back to your point on those existing structures, that's a fair point. But I do think maybe we should have stated it as anyone that is looking to change, to develop something new on that property would have to abide by all these environmental setbacks, wetland setbacks, the Gateway Commission setbacks. So yes,
Within
I
a
think,
marine industrial.
right,
Well,
I think,
no.
I think,
People
So-
seek variances from that setback routinely. I was at the Gateway Commission last month when
True.
somebody was there seeking that variance. So,
True.
but but
And they
the
get the
point,
same reaction from us.
but what I derive from your comment is that whoever those unknown, non-existent developers are who would be able to make the same assertions should also be found to be consistent with the harbor management plan, because these sections and goals and policies are being honored in the proposal that's actually in front of you, or in the hypothetical ones to which you're making reference.
And there's a fear,
Yep.
if I understand, that let's assume that we were able to somehow miraculously use this as a water dependent. And we maintain the existing buildings as they exist because we have certain rights to those. I mean, would it then be helpful to the environment as it exists there, right? The answer, or certain other criteria of the Harbor Commission's goals, the answer is it may not, right? I mean, so I think it's hard to check all those boxes.
it's a very different evaluation, right? Like if someone came in and said, hey, we're going to reconstruct these buildings as is where they are, blah, 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 but we're going to bring in this great marine industrial water dependent use. It's a different balance the way, right? You're saying, okay, yeah, the environment is being impacted in a way that these are kind of located in the wetland, but at the same time, you're bringing in marine. It's just, I get the point, and I understand, I appreciate that.
But it's just, listen, I mean, it is really, this is a juggernaut it's important, because when you start with something, came here a long time ago with Christine Nelson, with the thought of creating something that was something called the boathouse. And as it turned out, which would have been allowed in its use and would have a water dependency factor. Because of setbacks from the neighbors, gateways, all these other things, parking requirements was a non-starter, right? So, and we worked with an engineer in Essex to kind of help us do that. So you keep spinning, yourself around, but the reality of it is that, I own it, so I want to develop it somehow. I didn't come in here and say to myself, hey, listen, I'm fucking building 4 houses here, okay? In fact, I will clearly tell you that the original plan was not to do that, right? So, I mean, we get and I said to when there was a town planner, you guys tell me,
hey, and I said this exact thing to the zoning commission. Tell us what, it's, everybody can spin them, you got a magic wand? Tell me where to go, right? So the reality of it is the way I look at this is that you got a whole list of things that probably lawyers and environmentalists drew up that you have to sort of enforce. And it's great to try to go down and check the goals, but the way I see it, to use some of Bob's terminologies, in simplest fact, you have something that is zoned marine industrial because it got zoned a long time ago because there was somebody there that was in the marine business, right? And all this stuff happened around it. And, time went on and it did not change and it remained it. And your goal is to try to, within these regulations and with a mission in mind, try to maintain the industrial as much as possible. Over time, the ability to make that water dependent continue to erode and erode and erode to make it almost impossible. What might have happened 25 years ago in terms of dredging rights today is almost an impossibility, right? We know the realities of this. We really shouldn't ignore them. So, what I keep saying, and I don't want to be nasty about it, what are we giving up? If we really didn't I gotta believe a professional like Keith Nielsen and everybody else with race and everyone else I talk to in this isn't gonna be a marine. Your water dependent use ain't happening over there. You got residents to the right, you got a marine, it's not going down. So if it's not going down, does it need to be our primary focus here? I think we have to say, it's probably not something we gotta let go of it. So now we have to look at this thing and say, within the marine industrial use, is there enough stuff that's happening here? And you guys use the words of public. Is there enough things happening in this redevelopment of this site? That the redevelopment is a crucial word and let's see how we can touch on it. And that's what Marjorie was trying to do. Does it fit all exact? Is there ways we can touch on this and say, yeah, it's consistent with this, or it's not in conflict, right? Hey, we're gonna make the environment better. We're gonna eradicate, we spend $150,000 and eradicate the Phragmites. Again, there's someone who could probably argue and say there's some bug that lives off this, but from everybody that I've talked to, they say this is a good thing, right?
Yep.
That, a bunch of other people, botanists and hydrologists, they spend weeks, if not months, and out there tell you, yeah, if you get rid of this thing, get rid of that thing, and add this thing, this is going to be great, and the world's going to be safe. Okay, the other thing we have over there is we have, you guys probably don't know this, but there's, an eagle's, it's now an eagle's nest and thing. So this is all part of preserving this sanctuary as part of my goal. So you really think if we're gonna have cranes over there and we're gonna be running, you think the eagle people are gonna let that happen? Yeah, I got forget about it, all right? I know this is not your problem, but unfortunately, you're part of this network and we've already named these eagles, all right? So, or people have, and I'm on a picture book scenario, and so this is tough stuff here, right? So the answer is yes. Are we gonna be preserving and enhancing that sanctuary? If they have their way, we are, okay. And I would suspect this is a very protected bird, and these are protected birds, and we're going to be doing what we got to do to protect that. These are just another facet. Supposedly what I'm planning which is not your concern in this title, this inland wetland area and all this is supposed to enhance, certain frogs and this and that weren't there before. So it is a complex maze of regulations and environmental situations. And, I think there's got to be a will to find a way if you want to, because I think in life, everybody can find a way to say no. That's a pretty easy. But, if we want to be part of the solution, is there ways that we can, and you guys can feel comfortable that in light of the underground and these circumstances, and I'm not asking you guys to look into the future. I do think that the past should have some impact. I think so, because we kind of know how we got here. And in the redevelopment, while it's going to be in residential use as opposed to marine industrial, and even when those people lived on the site and they ran the sail factory, they lived there different times. Are we benefiting that rest of what goes on in that harbor? Are we benefiting that as opposed to taking away from it? And I think what I heard from lots of people, taking the buildings down, restoring the upland, restoring the wetland, the Phragmite areas, planting whatever, stuff is growing, whatever, planting the right trees, planting the right salt grasses, whatever the eagles and the other birds want to eat. I mean, everything that we're trying to do is a sanctuary over there and still having people be able to benefit from it. We're trying to do, and we're trying to meet and, and I know Marjorie gets frustrated because she looks at things very, by the law. You're not, I don't think any of you guys are lawyers. I'm not a lawyer, and unfortunately, oftentimes while they know every rule and regulation and they'll argue with it over to a T, it comes down to perception, what people think, right? And I do know you guys don't want to create a precedent. At least that's the feeling I'm getting. But the reality of it is that with enough explanation as to what's going on there, as to why something to support this letter comes through, I think it will be meaningful. It's how you guys can orchestrate all the rest of the challenges of the property, as we've all admitted. The fact that it's never been used, ever been used in a water dependent use. I think that is a very material, important fact here, right? I mean, it's because in other areas where there's a possibility of developers to come someplace else to throw out the marine to water dependent use if it ever once. I don't think that's happening, right? It's gonna have to continue. The fact that never existed here, I think, is very, very material, and it throws the property out of balance from a standing point. And then you guys mentioned the public use scenarios. I told you I'll be willing to, to engage with the town, further on elevated walkway if that's what they want to do to create the node. And I'm open to other suggestions, and I certainly feel a lot of them in this project so far.
Yeah,
That's very helpful, what you just said.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. We understand the difficulties you're going through with this property and everything.
I think personally for me, what is most helpful to hear are those things of, what are the positives that come out? Because well, let me step back to the setting precedent. We never want to set a negative precedent, right? Losing a marine industrial zone is going to be a negative precedent. I think this one's unique because it's a unique piece of property. So it's different than somebody coming in and taking over a marina and turning it into condos. It's just it's a different thing. But still, it is difficult to set precedent like that, just that change.
But wouldn't you say, correct me if I'm wrong, it is our policy that we never want to change from a mean
Totally. That's the big thing that we're trying to overcome.
We don't want to give away anything that has potential. We believe by, looking in this history and the science and the fact that it's never been water dependent, right? That's not necessarily marine industrial, but water dependent. And the configurations and everything else we mentioned here today, that this is a unique circumstance, meaning, zoning regulations, tidal wetlands came in the 80s and we have all kinds of things that virtually make any kind of water dependent use on this property highly infeasible or likely infeasible. That, I think, gentlemen, gives you a great out on anybody that would ever challenge that going forward. And mentioning the Phragmite remediations, the public walkway and accesses, the cultivation and the removal of buildings and other associated items that are within the tidal wetlands that, by all accounts, with down buildings literally in the water, are a detriment to the current environmental situation there right now. I mean, people kind of take those things for granted, but this is a pretty big deal, right? I mean, that we get rid of that some of that from an environmental standpoint will be an advantage. And I suspect, the bird people will say, well, if it was a marine industrial, the eagles probably wouldn't have landed, but who knows? That's it for a different argument. But there's a lot of it. There's clearly there's a lot of efforts that are being moved, and not just in your arena, but wetlands arena and other areas of town to improve this from an entire environmental and a community level. But we don't, what I don't want to do, and, you know, it's. I never find it's beneficial unless you gotta go there, that, you know, if Marjorie says this and you say this, for us to disagree or agree on all of these things. I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta do what you're doing, I'm just saying,
Well,
we're gonna over lawyer it, you know, I mean, it's.
no, but the reason we're doing it is, you know, Marjorie just sent us this letter. You know, I'm not blaming Marjorie. She's doing her job, right? She feels it's right. And I think it puts us in a box that we have to respond. You know, we say that there were 2 or 3 things that are supportive in the harbor management, right? If I were Marjorie, I'm not saying she's a bad person to do it, I'd be running right into zoning with this letter and going, see this? They made a big mistake. Okay? They made a big mistake because they missed all this stuff. So it kind of, I think, puts us in a box to make sure that we went through it thoroughly.
Yeah.
Either accepted it,
Right.
not accepted it.
You gotta do your job. Yeah,
You know,
I just
so-
don't, you know, I guess the question is how far do we challenge the nuances of all of it? That's the only.
I don't know, I just thinking, let's see how this goes, you know?
Listen, there's always going to be, and I've seen this unfortunately, no disrespect to Marjorie, but I'd rather never hire a lawyer again, okay? But the reality is, it is what it is. And then, you know, I've seen things that, because the law is written this way, you know, it may not make practical sense, but it's written that way. So, and I hate to get into the technicalities of it all, and hope we don't have to. I want you guys to do your job and feel comfortable with this decision. And I realize it's completely contrary to anything you've done in the past because of the precedents and the negative of giving up of that. But I would hopefully want to trust and you, Bob, you're right. You could probably get 3 other engineers in here and they'll all have a difference of opinion. But I think at some point in time, you guys can go to bed at night and still have your fiduciary obligation, as Ben saying, the applicant provided a reputable and, you know, engineering and Dr. Wink, and they stated the following, and for you to rely on that information, I don't think that that's irresponsible on any level. I don't know that it's your job necessarily to challenge it unless you have reasons to think that you have to challenge it, right? And similarly, I mean, if you guys want to get into technical difficulty, it's really 6.1 or 6, really, does it do that or it doesn't do that? I mean, we could go through all that. I mean, I obviously, from a legal standpoint, I suspect Marjorie feels she has an argument for every why she thinks every one of these things exist. You know, but the question at the end is, if you don't agree with it all, is that going to change whether you're going to say yay or nay? Right? I mean, it sounds like coming down to this thing is, hey, do we feel what's being done environmentally here from the fragmented remediation, public access ways, cleanup of the environment, upland replantings, are consistent enough with and the things outlined by the applicant are consistent enough with our policies, and because of the uniqueness of this property and the circumstances around it, we feel that we can support a PDD.
Before you go on, I just want to reframe the conversation, because I've heard you talk about whether or not a policy or goal supports the harbor the Harbor Commission, or whether it benefits the Harbor Commission, supports the Harbor Commission. The task is consistency with the plan, and that relates to the use. It doesn't relate to the zoning designation. It relates to the use, because zoning is about uses. So we've a proposed use, and we've identified these sections in the harbor management plan with which that use is consistent, not conflicting. And it's not a comparative activity, it's a direct analysis having to do with consistency of what's proposed with elements of the harbor management plan. We think that we have crossed that threshold. You have the discretion, but it's not support, it's not benefit, it's consistency, which is, I think, a broader term, but the operative term.
They're not in conflict either, right? So.
Well, no, I'm adding that to embellish on what consistency means, but I think it
Right, if we don't have
follows.
a bulkhead and it's not applicable, we're consistent, we're not, we're not.
Correct, but the
That's where I was
objective,
trying to go earlier, I just wasn't using my words correct. Bob, does that make sense?
It does. It might make sense in a zoning world. I don't know if it makes sense to us, right? I don't know. I'm gonna read.
but it's the operative standard, so I'm just
In
saying.
a zoning world, right?
No, the task here is to come to you with the identification of our consistency with your plan. And that is not a benefit detriment analysis. It's a harmonious. We are harmonious with the harbor management plan, which is not a function of the zoning district designation. It's a function of the use and the manner in which it will be implemented. That liberates you a little bit if you want to be liberated.
I don't.
Well, I think the only thing we can say is that at the end, yes, we're looking for consistency or lack of consistency with the harbor management plan. That will be what we make our decision on. And we can talk about balance, right? Yeah.
That it's inconsistent in our opinion.
Yes.
Without looking into the future.
Yes.
Which it appears nobody feels comfortable doing. Right?
What, that is consistent with?
No, the future uses of this thing.
We can't
whether it
guess on
can or
that.
cannot, or whatever.
We're looking at this application.
Correct.
And why would you say it's inconsistent? Because it doesn't have, because it's simply that the proposed use is not doesn't remain MI.
No, I'll give you the example. Go ahead.
Let me look at the clearest one. Support the continued operations and enhancement of boat support facilities, including marina, boatyard, and boat launching facilities.
So that's one criteria, but yet, if I was able to find a use that was marine retail, for instance, that wouldn't be in conflict of that because it's not applicable. But it's certain. So where Marjorie keeps going and I keep going is, these are a whole bunch of guidelines which you want to try to wherever possible check a box, but it doesn't mean they're always applicable. So the reality is this property, in theory, see, I'm of this belief, and I probably shouldn't be saying, but I think water dependent use is just, from everything I've heard, it's out the door on this piece. It probably shouldn't have been after 1980, probably wouldn't have been. So now we're saying, hey, but the marine industrial still has other uses that aren't water dependent.
Right.
I think that is really and then the question becomes, is there enough of it economically, practically outside of the dependent part that would support this? I would say that based on my, expertise and what I've looked into with other zoning conditions, the answer is no. The location, the roadway in, this and that. Is it completely infeasible? I could never say that. I would say the water dependent part is out the window. But I would say, yeah, is there a possibility you could find someone that sold boat trailers and wanted to be out of there? I guess it's possible. So you can't, but that being said, that we're looking for a plan development to go over that because the economics, the turning radiuses, the gateway, the neighborhood, the surrounding areas would not support that.
None of that is us. None of that.
But the reality
that
I was going to finish.
Reality.
I was going to finish the last part though. But then does the rest of the proposed development that we have, which we recognize would be a give up of MI, does the balance of what is happening to that harbor in terms of, some boat usage, public access, remediation of the fragmites, upland replantings, all the environmental things we mentioned, are they not in conflict and perhaps consistent, which consistent means not in conflict with other areas, at least what Marjorie's written down of your commission? The answer is yes, right? So, I mean, if I understand it in layman's terms, is what I'm saying accurate in layman's terms?
you're saying, yeah, we should look at a benefit analysis. Marjorie's saying we should not. It leaves us a little bit,
I think that's what we did last time, to be
Yeah.
perfectly frank.
Well, Marjorie, you're saying that they shouldn't do a benefit analysis?
I'm saying that the task is to find consistency.
right, she said, and specifically, you mentioned not to do a cost benefit analysis. I think you mentioned that specifically in your last statement.
We have a zoning application that has been referred to you for an assessment of its consistency with the harbor management plan,
Correct, period.
period. Yeah.
And so I guess the question is, the lack of water dependent use, obviously, we think it doesn't exist there, and it's certainly.
Water dependent use is public access. It's a perfect proxy from DEEP's perspective. So you can't say that
But
there
you
is
don't
no
have-
public access, there is no water dependency because it has public access.
No, but it's not water dependent public access, is it?
Water dependency is a proxy for public access or the other way around. So there's from
I don't
DEEP
think it is.
It absolutely is under the Coastal Management Act.
So going up and looking at the water is the same thing as having
Water
access to
dependent
the
use.
water.
Apparently.
Is that what you're saying?
A vision of the water has the highest esteem from DEEP.
That's not what I asked.
I beg your pardon?
I asked if there was a water dependent use.
Public access is water dependence. I'm going to go get my statute for it.
Thank you.
Would be all. You guys will learn, everybody's learned something.
We always do.
I had 2 new lessons.
So while she's looking for statutes. Trying to figure out. Just kidding, of course.
Bob,
Yep. Dave.
can I put in my 2 cents?
I'm begging you, Dave. You've been sitting there having a martini for the last 2 hours.
martinis first.
No, we're good. The main issue here is, as I see it, is it really, the problem we're having is that really the mission of the harbor management is to promote, obviously, marine development, to work with DEEP, to work with the other boards and commissions in the process of, again, marine and boating for the public. The issue I have is with the public access. Without parking, you have public access, but it's very limited. In the town of Saybrook, there are many public access points on road endings and beach associations. And what you find is after a couple of years, the adjoining neighbors, either with shrubs or rocks or lack of signage, limit that public access even more. One of the issues the town had, they did a study years ago and they ran into these issues and it became into a little bit of a legal battle. But without parking and without walkways, it's just not there.
Well, I will say to you, I've actually been part of, it may not be ideal, but I actually was part of a neighborhood where we had, actually 2 where we had walkways that led down to the view. And it's a requirement actually by DEEP on Coastal Management Act. They didn't have designated parking in those areas. And obviously, as you want to create this stuff, sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. But I would say to you, one of the benefits that you have in this particular property is you have a school parking lot absolutely directly across the street from the entrance to this driveway. And the negative of our driveway is that from a high traffic area, what we found is the way the road is crowned and the access of this driveway in proximity to Salt is from a traffic movement standpoint, SLR and others, because this is something that we considered back when we were talking about the boathouse. SLR, our traffic consultant at the time, felt that it was going to be difficult for us to get something like that approved because of the way people being able to pull in, pull out, and the movement of traffic over there. So having that site be something that has public parking became my understanding is that it created another detriment. One of the things that was suggested to me at the time is you have a public school directly across the street and people park there at the time. You know, in fact, they park there for the use of the baseball fields in the back, but also because there's almost no parking at the town's boat launch down there, most people actually park in the school parking lot.
They're actually supposed to by statute.
Parking
Required.
lot?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's more than, so you do, that's even closer, so my driveway is even closer than the public, boat, you know, the public boat launch there, or kayak launch, or whatever they call it there. Margaret, you back?
So are we saying, I mean, could someone carry a kayak down your property and put it in the water at that dock?
No.
No.
So there's not
The dock is
access.
private.
Dock is private.
There's a sitting area outside right near the
Right
dock.
next to
I
it.
understand it.
Yeah, where there'd be a thing, say, do not, no pressure beyond this point. A little bench is there.
From what I understand, and this is just my understanding, I was told the town already has a kayak launch. Forget it, you know, because we were having,
Sheffield.
we were having a problem with kayaks trying to navigate out that area. What would be of more interest to the town was this estuaries. You know, that's what I was told. I don't know if you guys heard the same thing.
So
What, Marjorie? Marge? Did she lose her?
She's still there.
She's still there.
Yeah.
Muted.
She's just muted.
Yeah, Marjorie, there you go.
yeah, I lost the page that I was on, but it was 22A-96 16, and it was, it equated water dependent use with marinas and fishing. It says a water dependent use as defined by Connecticut General Statute, Section 22A-696, 16, example, marina, commercial fishing facility, public access walkway. Total proxy for water dependency.
These uses include facilities or areas providing recreational enjoyment of coastal waters such as fishing, boating, or viewing, which require direct access to the shore, which is not direct access here.
Well,
Anyway,
I mean,
that's the rest of the statute.
let me ask you something. What wouldn't direct access to the shore?
Direct access would be to be able to put a kayak in or to stand on the dock.
But the viewing, how you talking about viewing from it?
That's what it's, I just said, that's what,
But
that's what the
viewing is
statute,
mentioned there.
that's what it mentions in the statute, that's all. I thought, I'm not a lawyer,
Yes,
I just read it.
but I would imagine viewing.
Yeah.
Is viewing.
I just read what
Yeah.
it says.
Kayaking is kayaking.
Yeah.
So perhaps legally, the Shanklin is correct.
I'm sure lawyers could argue it on both sides of that.
Don't know,
fence.
not a lawyer. I simply read. what-
Can you dip your toe in the water? Can you?
Yeah, which was there. That's all just to complete what Marjorie said.
So I hope you appreciate, Mike, that we are trying to meet the deadlines from the zoning commission, because we always try to say do what's right? That sounds schmaltzy, right? But that's being driven by your application and their need to meet your application, right? I think we probably have some leeway still, time-wise. We've raised it at least twice, maybe three times, this extension to, the estuary or something short of that, How do we consider the possibility of that? I don't know how we even do that.
How it can even be part of what we send to zoning.
We certainly can indicate that, if you support, it's conditional upon the applicants, offering, and again, I would have that market, but working to work with the town, to offer, the property for pedestrian access to connect to the estuary, if possible. Again, she would have to give you that language with your own people. I'm saying to you that I'm no lawyer either, so, what I think the first selectman is that I would be willing to certainly offer that land and work with them if they felt they could connect the estuary and what's the name of the housing project then? There's a
It's a senior center. Senior housing.
Senior housing.
Yeah. So that was to try to, at a minimum, try to connect Saybrook senior housing and possibly the estuary. Apparently, the estuary, they call it the estuary. That's like that.
Yep.
Apparently, that's a little bit bigger.
Estuary center.
To get it, because that's a bigger crossing.
Across the wetland.
I think.
Yeah, but there's a gate opening between the estuary into the senior housing, right? So if you connect the senior housing.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, I haven't.
That wasn't mentioned to me, but so, yeah.
You can walk through there, yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm getting to that point, but I haven't used the estuary yet.
So
Knocking on the door though.
I went there for a meeting, but
Yeah.
What is it?
Yes,
the
it's
estuary
our
center.
senior center,
Senior center.
and it's actually quite robust.
It's actually a community center for people 50 and up.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Well,
Use the right words. Thank you. And that's where the building is behind what was the gym.
Right.
Yeah.
Very,
Okay.
very nice building. Just take a walk.
Yeah, they have a gym.
I actually have been,
quite
now,
big.
I was actually in it for a meeting at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exercise thing or something. My daughter's a long time ago. Okay, so that's what, they call it the estuary now.
Estuary center.
Estuary Center, all right, so I know it, I know the building, so it's the senior, and then there's on actually Lynn Street, on Sheffield itself, there's a housing project, but there's a housing development that is for
15 over, yeah.
15 over, right?
Yeah, and there was a gate connection between the two buildings. So, between the development and the estuary building.
I think some of the language you might be looking for is that you'd be willing to enter into a public-private partnership with the town to extend public access through that area.
Wow, are you aware?
Wow. I was gonna say, that's where I'll sit and have to take notice at this point. Write that down.
So you're gonna run the next meeting.
Yeah. Yes.
That's good language, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Marjorie.
I want to correct the statutory reference. It's 22A-93, parentheses 16, and it's a paragraph devoted to the definition of water-dependent uses, which
That's what it said.
includes with uses which provide general public access to marine or tidal waters. It is the definition of water-dependent use.
Okay.
Did you write that down, guys?
No,
He's got it pulled
he's
up.
got it on
Google's got it for us.
So, look,
Anyway,
I launched into this speech about this concept that Mike has offered. Does that help shift the balance for people if feasible? Does it, what's the interest level here?
I mean, it achieves what we're ultimately looking for here, right? Is that benefit kind of outweigh, it's consistent with the harbor management, or it outweighs it, so it is consistent with the harbor management plan, right? And I think that from a community benefit is much more beneficial to have that. It seems more meaningful to have that full loop access compared to a rather difficult to find, single point. We have a lot of those. That's the challenge. Like, I feel like we have dead end roads, like David was saying, all over the place. They're just impossible to get to unless you
And you
walk into
can't-
my
yeah,
house. That's
right.
right.
And I think this group in particular want to visit Jack and Diane, that's what they call the Eagles. And I'm serious, they do, and that, that tree is, is like right on the walkway that we're proposing to go out to the water. But they, the seniors have, have a bigger distance, so they were hoping that they could sort of come out their rear gate and kind of walk along the cemetery, if you would, and then visualize Jack and Diane. Because there are folks that have been out there with, cameras, telescopes.
Oh, yeah.
All kinds of stuff, and, but it's a pretty big bird. I mean, the female version of it. It's big.
Yeah, they have quite a range, and they send a tree across from our house periodically as well. They're massive. This winter, there was one out there for 2 days eating something red on the ice.
Yeah.
It was like probably a small dog or,
This place, you gotta give,
Anyway.
all the environmental, especially the estuary. There's a lot of birds down there. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. We've
so
really,
you're on this piece and there's eagles, there's this kind, I mean, they're
Ospreys.
everywhere, ospreys, I mean, it's a lot of birds.
We have boats in North Cove, so we know all.
It's all about birds.
All three of us, right? So.
I should line up, so they won't land on my boat.
So
One year I got an
I'm
email
supposed to get on it, yep.
saying, I give up. I can't beat the birds. I'm giving up.
I'm
my
kidding.
life."
Who said that?
I don't remember. It was
This is like,
some mooring holder.
That's
He
right.
was just like,
Just
I'm
like-
done.
God, I can't do it anymore.
Look, I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah,
Is there any way we could take a walk out there, Mike? Are you guys interested in taking a walk out there to see where this path could go and possibilities it has? And can we see anything from it? We sit there and go in good faith, I'm not questioning that, this could be a pretty good deal, absent the difficulties getting over the wetlands, which I don't think would be a new problem.
No, and let's face facts.
And municipals could,
The municipals have way more
I
power.
was gonna say, the municipals have a whole
Way
lot more.
power than.
Well,
it's anything that's like public access.
Yeah.
It's gonna hold a lot. of
Especially if
weight.
it's-
Like if you're trying to do this in your backyard for it to get to your own private dock, it's a big uphill battle. But when you're trying to provide public access.
Gotta get through the seniors too.
Yeah, true. True.
No, but I think they, at least some of them want it, because this didn't spring up from thin air.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the answer to your question is, I don't know statutorily, Marjorie, what does it do, but I have no problem with walking with that. Marjorie. Marge?
Muted.
Did you ask her?
Yep, we asked it.
Well, right now we need snowshoes. I've got 4
Yeah.
pairs of snowshoes.
Of course you do.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
The sailor, the skier, the boulder.
He only
He's
goes
got a
snowshoeing.
skydiving line here too.
I went to
I've got
Ocean
a-
State,
Marjorie?
bought snowshoes. Never used them, brought them to the transfer station.
And then it dumps.
Is she, you asked her to unmute?
We did. I still have a drone I could put up there to get, seriously.
That's where the players.
right?
Yeah, I could have a drone that I could launch nearby and get a high level view with permission.
We're actually, I'm actually, I hired a drone.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Yeah, and, but of course,
Wouldn't that
it's
be-
okay.
You may have those pictures somewhere.
No, I had.
You didn't, he hasn't come.
He came, I have the ones from last year,
I see.
but, we actually hired, a company that's gonna take
Right.
the drone stuff and create a rendering, if you would, you know, of it finished and things like that.
Oh, she said she's on.
Margaret,
Yeah,
statutorily, the folks here asked if they could walk the site. I have no objection. What is the time, what does that do to me time frame wise or anything else?
well, it's under snow cover, isn't it?
I know, but they were indicating they have quite a bit of snowshoes. One of the sons.
I have some food for when I was
Why
a
don't
kid.
we,
Seriously.
is the drone okay? I mean, do
I can
you
try.
think we?
Hey, you know what?
Or Google Earth, I mean. you
I
can
Google Earth and the
Google
drones.
Earth, yeah, Google Earth has got a lot to
Yeah,
do with
it's
it too.
it might be, that might even be smarter, right? If you do that.
I don't know what they're attempting to ascertain. We have photographs of a certain variety.
They're looking to see they want to see the proposed potential public access way for the senior housing, area to the site directly. And, because I had indicated that I would work with a public-private
Public-private partnership.
public-private partnership, if the town could get, raised, access in the back area by the estuary and the senior center, or the senior housing.
Do you guys feel that feeling? Well, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. I would swear.
We have a meeting on the 16th, don't we?
Is that what your zoning meeting is?
I believe so. Let me look at my calendar.
We want to reply at least a week ahead.
I think zoning has asked for, if I
Yeah, they gave us a
They gave us
date.
a
by the
date
6th. I thought it was
by
March
March 6th,
to respond, but
by March 6th.
I don't,
Yeah, March 6th.
Is our time to respond. In
Wait,
time,
March.
to be in time for their.
Look, this,
meeting.
I spent
No.
some time looking at the drawings, all right, and I'm just gonna describe it, right? There's the wetlands.
No, it's the 16th.
yeah,
My
but the response is.
Our response is
by the
due.
6th.
Very
Yeah.
well. Yep.
There's the wetlands line, right? Then there's the 50-foot wetland center, right?
That you talking title or inland now?
Should all be titled there, right?
Coastal.
Yeah. So I don't know what so where are we talking about? Talking about where the senior center is?
You know,
Try
I
to
actually
find
put
the-
my backup for my taxes here, and it's got all my financials in
I
it.
give it to
You do the same thing I do. I use the back of the
Printed something
pages.
badly.
Where the
I
hell's the
borrowed-
paper? Which, borrow what? Yes.
Because this pen doesn't.
Here, I have a pencil you want. I make
Property
too much
kinda look
mistake with
right.
the writing pen.
He took it over.
You already took it already.
Property looks kind of like this, right?
Yeah.
General,
Yeah.
right? Right now, this path goes here. Right? You have this inlet here that it used to go to. I could have sworn.
That's where the inlet was, there was always a walkway to the dock. The inlet was for the
Kayak.
kayaks. So it was two actually.
Right. So when something,
Yeah, but now those houses are like
There you go.
literally 50 feet from each other, so that's not.
yeah, the
Yeah.
houses are in here,
Yeah,
right?
Yes. Say, and then down two of them there's only two there. There's two
Yep.
where you're at
down
is,
here.
and then two on the lot. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Here you've got 3 lines, right?
Right.
You've got the gateway, you've got the wetland set off, and you got the actual wetlands, right?
You have the.
This is
High
50.
water line.
This is
Behind
100.
water, coastal jurisdiction line, tidal wetlands, and then gateway. Yeah.
Phragmite is like in here.
It's really in the Phragmite. Almost all of it is in what I call is waterward.
Correct. To lower the wetlands line, right? So
Because
this,
the property goes like way out into that wetland, and the marsh is all part of this thing.
right, so this path would, and there's a little indentation, here, would go like as far away as the houses, I would assume. You know, that only seems reasonable. and along the water somewhere, there's a pretty steep, somewhere here, there's like a bank, right? So it'd be at the top of the
It'd have to
bank.
be in the top of the bank.
Okay, fair enough.
Because it falls off too dramatic.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it would be it would kind of look like this, right?
Yeah, but Carl had even said he might want, this is what we had, and Keith was saying to you guys initially, we can do, let me show you the pen. He wants to be able to come, what I understand is the estuary thing comes like this. He wants to come out this gate and do this. And give them a direct pathway across this road too. That's what I was described. I don't mind this, but I don't know if they want to walk all this far, but they may. I mean, that's open for discussion.
Oh, when you were talking about it, that's what I just had.
Listen, that was what initially what was proposed. But what was suggested to me recently was the alternative. While I will tell you, I'm not as in love with the alternative either because it comes closer to the house on that one. But if they were looking for a more rapid walkway, as opposed to meander, which, that might give them a more direct pathway.
Right.
Yeah, and actually my understanding is the gateway in either regards is in favor of pedestrian walkways, 5 foot wide. So that's a good thing. We wouldn't have their opposition.
So the bench is like down here at the end of the road.
Bench is right here.
Yeah, there, right there.
And where's the roadway? The roadway's
Here.
okay, the driveway, okay.
Yeah.
So either get to the road, then down to the bench, or like you're proposing to go along.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll be honest, this was only suggested to me after, just before the snow last week.
Right.
I haven't walked it either. I mean, we were initially we were really gonna relocate the inland wetland down there when we were having the bigger and, did all kinds of test pit stuff. I haven't been back there in a while. But it looks, it looked a little rough back there, but I mean, I'm not a soil expert. But if it can be done, as you guys said, I'm of that belief too. I mean, if with the municipal participation, often. Deep is a much more reliable
Whole different story.
story than me trying to get the document. Totally. So, and I would imagine that was a really significant public addition, especially if you indicate that it's part of, what do you call it?
Public-private partnership.
Public-private.
Just sounds so official.
It's so good.
He cute.
Do you guys have an interest in walking?
I do, yeah, I would love to. I don't, again, it's deep right now, but I don't.
I'll do it if I'm available, but I can't.
Yeah,
to get it out.
Well, my schedule is kind of.
Are you looking at Google Earth?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, just trying to understand exactly. I mean, I get it. I see the original. Yeah, it goes right along there. You can even see that.
If he's got a drone, you could drone.
Yeah, but
you can
got
actually
I believe that's the walkway that you're talking about that got them to the Saybrook Village.
right.
So there's the estuary. There's the walkway. So then I don't know if it'd be something different that went along there. Or if you cross over in here and then somehow through there, through Saybrook Village, you'd have, because there's definitely, this is probably where everyone saw the issue, because there's definitely like fingers coming off the creek, if you will. Feeding back into that very back corner. That's probably a difficult thing to cross.
I've been down there in the skiff.
Without some sort of bridge. or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. You'd need an elevated walkway of some sort.
That's what, Nielsen's company said.
It's actually right here, right? Yeah. Right here you're talking about. It's not up here. The fingers are coming down.
Yeah.
It's here.
Well, how do you get there from the estuary?
Well, they keep on saying estuary, right? But
There's
the estuary, there's a path.
that connects. I've never seen it. I didn't know.
You can see it on there. There's just,
It's right there.
yeah, exactly.
Look at
Yep.
that. Look at that. Okay.
So what
Goes
we're
to
talking
that
about
property.
is here,
Yeah, from there.
right? And then along
Yeah.
See, there's trees there. I just think trees are up, right?
Trees are gonna be higher, yeah, for sure.
So, you know, you could go through these trees as far away from the houses as possible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
All the way, which is along the shore.
Yep.
Right? There's the inlet, so.
And there's the decrepit building.
And you're at least 100, you're at least 100, you're at least 100 feet away from anything.
Yeah.
Water would be, because you have to be.
Right.
The houses are 100 over, because of the gateway setback. What I'm saying is.
This isn't gonna interfere with
the house.
the house.
Yeah, right.
But what's proposed is a
Something
walkway
coming to-
down
like
there. Yeah, up to a point that stops. Well, I guess it would, is that where the dock would be? No,
Yeah, that could be right, like here.
no, the dock's here.
No,
No? Okay.
no, the dock is here.
Okay.
On North Cove, not on.
That's where you're putting the dock?
Yeah,
I thought
it's-
you were putting
it's-
the dock in the inlet.
No,
No,
Okay,
that's where the kayak ran.
that's where the kayak.
it's almost right near those houses that are part of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
next
It's
road.
literally.
It's right here.
Right against the
Right there.
property line, again.
Okay.
Just dismay.
Yeah, yeah.
And the path runs this way, it would be just, you know, in here, which again, is away from the houses. You know, that's all marked.
Show me where the connection piece is again from to the estuary.
Doesn't connect to the estuary. That's the thing to say. It's right here. Right? Here's Saybrook Village. That's the senior housing.
Right, and there's a walkway from the estuary to the senior village.
There's an opening and a fence.
Opening and a fence.
Yeah, you can see it on there.
You can see it on that. And then-
Right, so it's right here.
That's where they were.
That looks,
This
that
is
looks a
where-
little bit wet.
That's what Mike was saying.
Yeah, right in here. So
Yeah.
that's the difficult part, getting from here to there. And then, you know, whatever the seniors think.
Yeah, see, there's the.
Where's the path from scene? I want to see that one. Oh, okay, right there. All right.
Yeah, there is. a
Right,
path.
right here.
So they come to here and then they go into the senior area and then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
come there.
But from here, you're downtown, right?
That's the whole.
And then parking and everything else is not.
Yeah, that's not exactly.
Right.
You can go to Paperback, get a coffee.
Yeah.
Walk from there.
Jack and Diane.
See Jack and Diane.
See Jack and Diane.
Or is it out in California? They have the eagle's nest with the camera in it and all the.
Oh,
Yeah, what?
They put a camera in an eagle's nest.
Yeah, my mother watches it every
My
Friday.
kids. They're named too.
Yeah.
Jackie and something
Shadow.
else. Yeah, there you go. Jackie and Shadow.
I mean, a lot of people watch that stuff.
Yeah,
So.
that's where the property will make all its money on YouTube.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Forget the houses.
Yeah.
A few cameras. All right, so how are we ending this? When
That's
you
a good
get to see it? Or are we going to be zooming it, or are you droning it? What are you doing?
Go see it, I think. You can, you don't need to at this point, what you're seeing.
I still wouldn't mind just seeing
Yeah.
it because I've never been on.
You guys are around on Saturday?
I've already. Think so.
Yeah.
If one of us sees it or two of us sees it, that's probably not. I'd like to go, but you know, I may have to go to New York Saturday
I
morning.
can certainly meet you guys later, Saturday morning, 9 o'clock.
Why don't we just say Saturday morning at 9 o'clock? Well, that's tomorrow, right?
No.
Once Friday.
Day after
Oh,
tomorrow.
shit.
Tired people.
Sorry. Sorry.
What are we saying, Saturday 9 AM?
Saturday, 9 AM.
Yeah, maybe at the gate, you know, gate area. Actually, hopefully you can drive in. We haven't bought it, so hopefully, you know, but I have a 4-wheel drive, which is fine. I think a lot's melted, right?
It has melted a lot, yeah.
If not, we have your,
I can bring snowshoes.
Are you available
So-
Saturday morning?
I think so.
So I have a suggestion. This letter that we're going to write, one way or another, not hinging on a decision here. I'm not saying we've made a decision, I'm even close to that, because I don't know what anybody's thinking. It's gonna have to be more extensive than last month.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I think we talked about in fairness, I think we have to say, we agree it hasn't been used for 10 years. It's a fact, right? And we agree that it's a difficult site. I'm not gonna, you know, parse the wording. right
Yeah.
now, but it's gonna have to be more. Right? That's gonna take some time, and that might take some editing back and forth. we have to have another meeting to talk about this and vote on it. Okay, I hate to do this,
Yep.
but we do. Tell us when we could maybe even do it by Zoom, I don't know. But my thought would be that Paul or I draft something without a conclusion. So we have the guts of it together.
You paint the full picture, because there's a lot there,
We
right?
state the facts.
Yeah,
State the facts, talk about, suggest some things that are consistent and or inconsistent. Okay.
And how to make it improving public access is a more,
Well-
to make it more positive.
That's where the balance comes, right?
Right, and that's where our
You know,
decision.
that's what we were talking about. If this potential path is a, much more beneficial than the one that exists now, we think that swings things a little bit, you know, or enough.
If you guys were so, if what you see, Saturday and the like is, and any of the investigation you're doing inclines you to see the balance and swung even a little bit from 51 to 49 our way. Obviously, we would be looking for something that that is on a positive rather than a rejection, because we would, or I would certainly prefer to not have to have a super majority. You know, there's always it's never, and then sometimes you get back to square one. And as I said to you, I think in general, unless something is dramatically changed, people are in favor. So many of this as a general law. I don't know this. It's not. The planning was in favor. Last time I was on the course, they were, you know, generally in favor, which we didn't have some Z. I think some letter from you guys that wasn't a rejection and that was a neutral or slightly positive would, I think, would enhance the situation. So in drafting that, but I understand.
I'm not gonna draft a conclusion.
Right, the
Okay,
conclusion
but I
remains.
think I understand.
You understand what I'm saying? Okay, that's 9 o'clock on Saturday.
Yep.
Enjoy New York. Where you going? Good.
Houses for my daughter.
Oh,
So she can
she's
spend,
moving there
I'll find some. House.
in New York City.
No,
Oh,
just Westchester.
high tax.
High taxes, high price.
Non-desirable
not
area.
nice
I live
houses.
there. I live there. Non-desirable living area.
I just did that exercise with my son. He lived with himself, but he worked in Manhattan. So there was a lot of. I mean, it just like in some of the towns I look at, like Bronxville was beautiful, but I think the taxes were just unbelievable. You know, and yeah, it's just it's closer. The proximity is good, but it's definitely. Gentlemen and ladies, and in particular, lady, thank you so very much for your private.
We're gonna go on with one more.
We have another one.
We're gonna go on with one more item really quickly.
Margaret,
Thank you for your time. I appreciate the time. I think we all appreciate the suggestion. Those of us that can make it at 9 o'clock.
Yep.
We'll meet at
I
the
should be
gate.
there. Yep.
Marge, we're good to go.
Yeah, I think you may have to amend your site plan, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. We were going to try to, and then didn't because we don't know if it's feasible. But if the let's see what happens on Saturday, and then we can talk about how we would address that. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, the second item. Just gonna say,
Approval.
we have to put David right on the spot for this. This is the RFP. Are you okay with the RFP as written, in particular the dates, David?
Yeah, it's fine. We need to get it out.
Yeah.
So I'll take it out of red line. I'll send it to, to, Georgianne. I'll send it to Jennifer.
That just left out.
Damn. Is she back on Monday? Do you know?
I can't remember how long she's been gone. This is her long vacation.
Too long.
You mean so you can get up on DAS?
Yep. Yep.
I'll figure out how I can get on DAS.
And everyone, if anybody has any suggestion for contractors we'd like to use, let us know. Well, I'll circulate a final copy of this, okay, in PDF. After it's on the website, you can provide it to anybody you want. But you can't give it to anybody early.
Yep.
Right, so we'll send out an email, because David in particular, I thought you thought of a few different people.
Yeah, we might, I'm just concerned that, we're gonna need, to get other people, make sure that they can do it.
Right.
Get it done.
All right. So I forgot about this. Let me make a motion that we accept the RFP for the Ferry Road Town Dock water line replacement as I circulated, period.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. David?
You're on.
Oh. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:35.
Oh, my God. Thank you.
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you.